When the news broke that a young tech entrepreneur had been murdered in her own home, I covered the story. And of course, I did a little investigation. And it turns out the woman who lost her life, she is woke. She is a progressive. She has posted about Black Lives Matter and other issues. And she's given interviews talking about the diversity of her workforce and things of this nature. This does not mean she's deserving of anything, but it does point out the problems that these cities face based on how their populations vote. We now know the man who is suspected of killing her had previously tortured a couple in their home. The police were aware of this. They knew that this man would kill again and rape, and he was released early. He was supposed to be in prison for 30 years. He was released in 7. Soft on crime policies. No one deserves to be a victim. And someone who's trying to work towards justice, I can respect the sentiment. But unfortunately, if your failed ideas and your ignorance causes harm to other people, then I have to criticize you. Now, I can't speak for the couple that were tortured by this man, and it's serious, and we're going to get into it. But this woman who lost her life in her own home, she was found with blunt force trauma. The police said afterwards, the suspect will kill and he will rape again, as if to imply this woman was beaten and raped by this deranged psychopath. Of course, she doesn't deserve it. But we must make sure we understand. If you vote for soft on crime policies, you make these things more likely. Now, I think the fair point to be made here is those who would sacrifice liberty for security deserve neither and will lose both. In which case, if this woman said, I do not believe our justice system is functioning and too many innocent people are in prison, so I will see these people released, even if it increases the risks to me. Totally acceptable. Totally fine. I'll put it this way. I oppose death penalty. I think it's better that 10 guilty persons escape, 100 guilty persons escape, than one innocent person suffer. And that means more crime, more psychopaths out on the street. It does. And guess what else I believe in? It's called the Second Amendment. This woman should have been armed. If you want to advocate that we err on the side of presumption of innocence, and this means criminals will eventually get set free, that 10 guilty persons would escape for every one innocent person we exonerate, then you're going to need to protect yourself. And I accept the responsibility. I accept the risks to myself. The problem with the woke ideology in the neoliberal sense, not the leftists like guns. This woman should have been armed. And you need to understand that. But again, this shouldn't have happened to her at all. She shouldn't need to be armed, but the world is the world. No law will change the fact that there are deranged psychopaths. I'm now going to read for you about the failings of the Baltimore police and how this woman ultimately lost her life. An update to the story I covered a few days ago. The Baltimore Banner says, suspect Jason Billingsley apprehended by U.S. Marshals in killing of Baltimore tech CEO. This story is shocking and disturbing. I will avoid going into very specific details, but will give you the general understanding of this man's alleged crimes. Jason Billingsley, the registered sex offender being sought in the killing of Baltimore tech entrepreneur Pavel Lepere, as well as an earlier rape and arson, was taken into custody after 11 p.m. at a train station in Bowie, U.S. U.S. Marshals confirmed. The arrest brings to a close an unsettling few days as new and disturbing details continue to emerge about Billingsley, 32, a convicted felon who was released October 5th, 2022, after serving 7 years in prison. Lepere, an admired leader known as a rising star in her field, was found on the roof of her Mount Vernon apartment building late Monday morning. She had been reported missing earlier that day. Her body was partially clothed with signs of blunt force trauma. Authorities do not believe Lepere knew the suspected attacker. That is to say, she was likely beaten to death and raped by a known sex offender. And where it gets crazy, the police knew he was out there. They withheld the details from the public. I don't know what to tell you, man. Quote, this individual will kill and he will rape. Acting Police Commissioner Richard Worley said late Tuesday, he will do anything he can to cause harm. Please be aware of your surroundings. Now, the sad thing is, after this murder happened, the police immediately knew the suspect was. And then they came out and said, okay, everybody listen, he's going to do it again. Are the people of Baltimore allowed to keep and bear arms? No, they're not. I mean, to a certain degree, you can argue, but no. Maryland is considered one of the evil 7. And it is very, very difficult to defend yourself. Now, the criminals will defend themselves. The people who break the law to have the guns, whether they're actually hurting others or not, they're all criminals according to the state. All right. On September 19th, a man banged on the door of a rooming house in the 800 block of Edmondson Avenue in West Baltimore and identified himself as a maintenance worker. When no one opened up, he kicked in the front door, pointed a gun at two people inside, handcuffed and duct taped them, according to a source with knowledge of the investigation. Authorities believe Billingsley raped the woman and cut her neck. He doused her and the man with some liquid and then set them on fire. The couple survived and were hospitalized. Yes, the individuals had to receive surgery because of the damage to their skin from being set on fire. The fire spread to the rest of the building, causing alarm. A neighbor recalled everyone rushing outside when the fire broke out. The neighbor told the Banner they saw two people put into an ambulance, and the victims were saying they had been tortured. Latrice Johnson said her 26-year-old son, Jonte Gilmore, is being treated for burns to his chest, arms, and feet. He underwent surgery Wednesday to graft skin from his thighs to other parts of his body. Johnson said she learned this morning of September 19th that her son was attacked. She wishes police had done more after the attack to spread the word about Billingsley's identity. Had they done so, this woman, LaPere, may be alive. But I imagine what likely happened is that this man knocked on her door, kicked it in, beat her, dragged her to the roof, and then the rest is in the story. I'm trying to avoid going into too serious of details. But she should have been armed. She should have had a gun. And this is what people need to understand. And I always encourage everybody, follow your local laws. They're always different. Some states require crazy ones that your gun not be loaded. But understand this. Where are you right now? This is a question for everybody who legally owns a firearm. Do you know where it is? Is it secure? Make sure no children can get to it. First and obvious point. But that's a legal requirement in many states, even where it's legal. Make sure children cannot get access. Paramount. But the question I have for you is, if someone kicked your door in right now, will you be able to defend yourself and your family? This is what we hear from a lot of people who are experts. You've got your gun in a gun safe. This is why they argue that, some of these laws are overly restrictive. Let's say your gun's in a gun safe. And I'm talking about like a handgun or something designed for something, for home defense. Depending on what your preference is. Someone kicks in your door. How long will it take you to secure that weapon to be able to defend yourself? And that's why I hear from a lot of people, they say, if you have a weapon, holster it, keep it on your person when you're at home. Because let's say you're in the living room watching TV and you have your gun in your bedroom in a nightstand or in a small gun safe. And then you're in your living room and your front door is right there and the door gets kicked in with a dude pointing a gun at you. Wow, good thing you have a gun, I guess. I think gun safety is the most important thing. Knowing how to use one, how to keep it secured, having the proper equipment, all of it matters. A gun in a gun safe means nothing if someone kicks your door in right now and you can't get it. But again, I'm not saying you should be walking around holding a weapon or anything like that. I'm just saying understand, what will you do if someone kicks your door in with a weapon? Like kicks the door in and then brandishing a weapon, like we saw with the people he tortured. Now, I will say this. It's sad. This man's a suspect. Don't know if he's guilty or not. We'll see. He's just a suspect. And I don't have video and I have proof that he did it. So these are important things to consider. But operating under the assumption that this is the guy who did it because he was in prison previously for similar things, and he had been allegedly raped and tortured a couple, police could have come out and said, everyone be on alert. There is a serial violent offender on the loose. Lock your doors. Don't answer your doors. Keep your phones nearby. Protect yourselves. But they don't care about you. You see, we've entered a period where, because of the voting patterns of people like this woman, and I'm not saying this to blame her for what happened to her. That's not the case. I'm saying, but she votes in a pattern that results in things like this being more prevalent. That good law-abiding citizens can't defend themselves. If you vote to suspend people's right to keep and bear arms because you think common safe gun safety, you know that criminals aren't listening to you. They know this. The criminals are just like, I want following the law as it was. All that matters is the law-abiding citizens are restricted and can't protect themselves. And it leads to horror stories like this. Here's your update, man. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you well then.